Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar in which we're going to discuss the importance of prioritising employee wellbeing. We've chosen to discuss this important topic because, as you'll see in the next few minutes, absence and employee health continues to be an ongoing challenge. And we've got some data that will show that. So we want to focus on how, as an employer, you can prioritise the health and well-being of your workforce and putting it at the forefront to both the business and people strategy. So for those of you who are new, welcome. So I'm Victoria Templeton, HR Knowledge Manager here at HR Solutions, and I'm joined by Sue Watson. Sue is our Operations Director, and together we're going to take you through this morning's webinar, and we'll be talking through questions and poll results. Just to clarify, you will receive a copy of today's slides, and you'll also receive an email in the days after today's event that will provide any further information and guidance. And the recording will be also made available to you. So because we've got so many of you today, we've placed you all on mute. However, as usual, we do want to get your involvement in our webinar today. And so we'll be inviting you to ask us questions, which will take the end of the session. So on the screen now, you'll see an image of what your GoToWebinar panel looks like. So simply type in your question, and then, as I said, we'll aim to read out and answer as many as we can at the end, and any that we can't get to, we'll follow up as well. Another way in which we like to get everybody involved is through the use of our interactive polls. So when we are about to run one, you'll see this slide. Polls are really helpful not only to the running of the webinar, but actually we find that it helps everyone gain an idea of what other businesses are doing or thinking on the particular topic. So they are really helpful and insightful. They are confidential. We just know the numbers of who is voting. So I'll just quickly run through the agenda. So it's all about how you can prioritise your employee wellbeing, and we'll first look at key statistics that gives us some perspective as to the challenge that all businesses are facing. We're going to then look at what you should consider when developing both the business and people strategy so that the employee health and wellbeing is central to it. We'll consider the practical challenges of managing employee health and well-being, particularly in a world where we're seeing development in advanced technologies, we have increased remote working, and of course a fast-paced 24/7 society that we all have to operate in. And so we're going to look at how you can put employee well-being at the heart of everything that you do as a business. And a focus towards the end will take the topic of right disconnect, and we're going to look at a real life case study in terms of how it's currently adopted. So that will be an interesting one to consider. And then we'll run the Q&A at the end. So as I said, we're going to just look at some health and wellbeing statistics, and what we have first of all is those reported by the Office for National Statistics that was in a report last year. And we know that the number of people who were economically inactive in 2023 amounted to 2.58 million people, which actually was an increase of 76% on the data that we have for 2019, which is incredible. And when you look at the breakdown of the data, the ONS reports that the main reason, if you look at Q1, for example, in 2023 was due to depression, anxiety, which affected 1.35 million. And we all perhaps have experienced it within our business or even in our family and personal life. Depression and anxiety is on the increase. And these statistics sort of illustrate that. And in fact, looking at the entire of 2023, absences because of this reason amounted to 53%. And we also know from the ONS report that the nature of ill health is changing, because in 2023, 38% of those economically inactive had 5 or more health conditions. And again, that was a staggering increase from the 2019 data, and it was an increase of 70%. We then have statistics that have been gathered through a report by the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, the CIPD, and in their report, which is the Health and Wellbeing report of September last year, they reported that the average number of sickness days per employee was 7.8, with the two main reasons being mental health and musculoskeletal. And then when you look at the data relating to stress, for example, it accounted for 76% of absences. And the reasons for those stress-related sicknesses were being connected to things like heavy workloads and management style. So that's given us some context from a workplace perspective. And then if we think about the data that the Health and Safety Executive published, so they run their report every year around November, and in the latest publication, they identified that 1.8 million workers had reported ill health in the period 2022 to 23, which included 875,000 cases that related to work-related stress, depression, anxiety, and for a total period of 35.2 million working days. And actually, when you think about the cost to the economy, it reported that that was amounted to 20.7 billion. So it is staggering the context in which we're having to operate within. And of course, as a business, our people are central. They're our most important asset. So there is that strong business case to prioritise your employee wellbeing, because not only is there that legal obligation in doing so, because it's part of your duty of care obligations, but it actually is the right thing to do. Before we continue, we're just going to run a couple of quick polls, and really it's just to understand from your perspective, first of all, do you have any concerns for the employee wellbeing in your business? Be interesting just to see how everybody's feeling at the moment in this particular area. As I said, they're confidential. All we know are numbers, percentages.
Okay, I'll close that poll now and share the results.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess 79%, and it isn't a surprise, especially given the statistics that we've just sort of looked at. You know, everybody, I think, is observing, feeling in terms of issues with employee wellbeing. Don't know if you've got any comments, Sue.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a surprise to you, or
it's not from the inquiries we're getting through from clients. That's absolutely high on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, and our final poll in this part is really quick. It's about whether you have employee wellbeing top of your agenda and whether you put it as a focus there.
Okay, I will close that poll and share the results. There we go.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, for the 30% of you, you know, don't worry. Hopefully there's a lot of information that you can take away. There'll be some food for thought from today's webinar, giving you some ideas as to how you can put employee wellbeing at the top of the agenda. And 70% actually is a really good, strong percentage for those of you that do. And even those that you already do, again, hopefully there'll be some things, takeaways that you can take from this webinar today. Thank you. So I'll move the slides on. And we're going to now consider the starting point for how your business can go about prioritising employee wellbeing. And it's all essentially about developing a business and people strategy that focuses on the health and wellbeing of your staff. And the first step in developing your strategies which require careful consideration of your organisation's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. So essentially your SWOT analysis. Carrying out a SWOT analysis is key because doing so, it'll highlight the key issues that need addressing by the business strategy and in turn the people strategy, both of which go hand in hand and are vital business tools. When it comes to prioritising employee well-being, hopefully that SWOT analysis will help you then to identify the extent to which employee well-being is a workplace issue. And you can identify that through very clear indicators. So it's things to look out for, such as your absence levels. Obviously, one of the main indicators would be absenteeism, although not always, because presenteeism can exist, and that's where employees are constantly present at work despite being unwell. You may have quite high levels of stress-related absences or other mental health-related absences. And we know through data and reports and evidence that mental health issues have significantly increased in recent years. And so you may be observing a greater level within your own workplace. You might have low employee engagement. There might be that low morale within the workplace. That can be an indicator that somebody is struggling at work. Or you might have high staff turnover, because that can be connected to employee well-being. Employees are dealing more and more with greater responsibilities and juggling home life with employment, and for some, something just has to give, and people are making those choices. So you may be seeing slightly, higher levels of staff turnover. But it's how do you then incorporate health and well-being into your strategies? If you've got those indicators suggesting that there perhaps is that issue. And I think the first thing to say is assess that current situation. So, obviously the SWOT analysis is your starting point, but conduct surveys, gather that feedback from your employees about their health and wellbeing needs, and gauge what the current satisfaction levels are within your organisation. And then analyse that data. So looking at existing health-related data, you've got your absenteeism data rates, perhaps health claims, turnover rates, if you've got any feedback from exit interviews. They're all tools that will help you to identify trends and areas for improvement. Once you've seen how the land lies, then it's about defining your objectives and setting the clear goals that can align with the business goals. So establish clear goals that are specific and measurable objectives for how you want to employee health and well-being. So you might want to set a target for absence percentages, absence levels. You might want to see a reduction in terms of if there's a high level of stress, then you want to get your stress health absence levels down. You might want to introduce some clear goals that are around increasing physical activity of your employees, or improving mental health support, and we'll come on to some initiatives later on in the webinar. And of course, aligning with business goals is key. So it's about ensuring the health and well-being objectives then align with the overall business goals, such as enhancing productivity or reducing costs associated to absence management. If you think about once you've got your clear objectives, it's so vital that you engage leadership, and as leaders in your business, you lead by example. Encourage senior leaders to actively participate in and endorse health and wellbeing initiatives. It should be led from the top. And then think about how actually training can help as well in your workplace by providing your line managers with training on how to support employee wellbeing, recognizing signs of stress, burnout, looking for those indicators, changing behaviors, in changing their absence levels, performance indicators, etc. So it's training your line managers to be able to proactively pick up on those signs early, so you can hopefully nip things in the bud and put in the right measures. When it comes to developing initiatives, there's both physical health programs and mental health support, and of course work-life balance. So it might be that you want to consider initiatives that are on-site fitness classes, virtual desk yoga, which we have in our own organisation. You might want to promote healthy eating programs, or obviously ergonomic assessments to do with the work environment are also beneficial. And when you think about mental health as well, it's about what resources can you offer, such as your counselling service, employee assistance programs. You might have stress management workshops available to people so that they can learn tools in which they can self-manage stress levels. And mental health days, promote any campaigns. We have UK-wide campaigns for mental health awareness, linking with those. And work-life balance, which is probably really tricky, and we'll come on to talking about this more, but can you introduce flexible working arrangements, encourage regular breaks, promote the right to disconnect, which is probably getting some momentum now, and you'll start hearing about it more and more, I suspect. But, introducing that right to disconnect, even though there's no legislation, can you still do it? And of course, promote that healthy work-life balance. Communication is always key with any people management aspects, so having a health and wellbeing policy, raising awareness of it, and ensuring there's feedback mechanisms. The wellbeing policy is key because it will set the tone for how you're managing and taking seriously the employee wellbeing, and it's really important to communicate any measures and initiatives that you're running in your own organisation. And then think about that strategy that allows you to be able to provide resources and promote those healthy habits. So how can you give your employees access to information? How can you link in with external partnerships, for example, such as local gyms, any nutritionists in the local area? Are there any mental health professionals? Are any of your members of staff trained in being a mental health first aider? These kind of things. It's thinking about how you can form partnerships, and also think about creating a supportive environment, and one that runs regular activities, so that you're promoting fitness and healthy, fostering a healthy culture to help employees. And ultimately, with any strategy, you want to be able to measure it, evaluate it, so that you can then, in a period of time after having launched it, to know whether you need to stop something, continue with something, or even start something new. So always track progress and carry out regular reviews of any strategy. And I think as we now come on to the topic of managing employee wellbeing in a technical driven, remote and fast-paced world, I think this is probably going to be of interest because it is challenging. How can you do it? We are living in a society that's 24/7. People want things instantly. We have social media, technology, all of these things, whilst they have the benefits, also have the challenges. And I'm going to just run through now what they are. So if you think about advanced technology, obviously being able to use technology can bring efficiency and flexibility to the workplace. It allows for flexible work schedules. It enables employees to better balance work and their home life. And of course, it can also provide access to health resources. So having some digital platforms in place, giving them access to virtual fitness classes, webinars, and other training resources. When you think about remote working, then clearly the massive benefit is that work-life balance. It's just small things like not having a commute to work that can take a lot of stress out, whereas somebody that may have had to navigate through the underground system and now is obviously working from home, taking that commute out of their day can help manage stress levels. So remote working can improve work-life balance. But of course, from an employer's perspective, it gives you access to a broader talent pool. You can hire from a more diverse group, global talent pool, and making it more of an inclusive organisation for you. And when it comes to the 24/7 society, yes, it does have its place because businesses can operate across different time zones, and therefore increase productivity and customer service, and therefore increase the availability that your business can offer. Employees can work at times that suit them best and potentially increasing job satisfaction. So there are many, many benefits to the use of technology, remote working and operating 24/7, but of course there's challenges. And if we think from a technology point of view, then just be mindful that of the tech burnout. So continuous connectivity can lead to burnout. So it's about making sure that you're monitoring workloads and encouraging regular digital detoxes, if you like. There may be concerns around privacy, so it's making sure that if you're using technology to monitor health metrics, then that in itself can raise some privacy challenges and issues. So it's about ensuring you have transparent communication about the technology, about the data use, and obviously ensuring that compliance with the UK GDPR, which is fundamental. When you think about remote working, whilst it has many, many benefits, there can be some downsides. So if you think isolation, remote workers may feel isolated, leading to mental health issues. So having regular virtual check-ins and team building activities can really help maintain that connection. And also, can it blur the boundaries between work and personal life? So it's about having clear policies on working hours, encouraging that downtime, and of course the right to disconnect that I've mentioned previously. These are all critical. In a 24/7 society, the challenges obviously exist as well. So that constant connectivity, the expectation to be always available, that in itself can lead to stress and burnout. So that's why implementing the right to disconnect can help mitigate this. And of course, there could be health impacts. So irregular hours of work, if there's that lack of sleep because there's just that fast pace of life that's impacting on your sleep, then that in itself can affect physical and mental health well-being. So it's about promoting healthy lifestyle choices, and offering flexible scheduling options will be vital too. So how can you manage employee well-being in this tech-driven, remote and fast-paced world? What strategies are available to manage it? So I think, first of all, it's about promoting digital well-being. So promoting the regular taking of breaks from screens, provide resources for managing digital fatigue. You can implement tools that will help employees manage their time and workload effectively as well. When you think about fostering a connected culture, so create virtual spaces for that social interaction as a way to combat isolation, and regularly check in with your remote workers and provide that support for mental health. When you want to have a strategy that enforces better work-life balance, then make sure you set clear boundaries for working hours. Encourage employees to disconnect after work and to separate work from home life. Even it's little things like having a dedicated space, if possible, where you do work, that you can just shut the door after work and then you're not seeing your workspace as you're going around your house. It's trying to think of ways in which employees can help better manage their balance of their work and home life. Also offer flexible working arrangements to accommodate different lifestyles and needs as well. Providing comprehensive health resources is also really beneficial. Offering that access to mental health support, so if it's like a counselling service, stress management programs, they are all productive and help employees. Promote physical health through initiatives like virtual fitness challenges and wellness workshops as well. And an important thing is about ensuring privacy and trust. So it's about being transparent about how your health data is collected and used. It's about fostering that culture of trust where employees feel comfortable discussing their health and wellbeing needs, so that they feel they're able to go to their line manager and have a conversation and say, put their hand up and say, I'm struggling. And ensuring that you have GDPR at the heart of any initiative you introduce. That's all important for gaining the trust of your employees. We're going to run a couple of polls at this point, more to do with the strategy side of things, so do let us know. And the first question is, do you have a strategy for focusing on employee wellbeing?
Okay, shall we close that poll and share those results? There we go.
Okay. Okay, so 31% of you do. So it'd be interesting if anything that we're talking about today that you've got incorporated in it, or there might be some new things that you've not thought of that you might want to. For those of you that haven't, the 69%, I guess perhaps is it not knowing where to start, or you know, there is so much to think about. And I suppose if we think about what we've gone through already, your starting point is that SWOT. So what are your absence levels like? What is you know, your turnover like? Do you do exit interviews? Can you gather feedback? Just start to have that initial analysis and then try and think about what steps you can take to move forward to help your employees. And hopefully, as we go through the webinar today, you'll pick up some ideas as perhaps what you can introduce. And just, you know, things don't have to be costly. They can be low cost or even no cost. It could just be time and effort. So yeah, so it's not necessarily always about cost. So don't feel like that puts you off. And then we've just got a second poll at this point. It's about whether, for those of you that do have a strategy, just to give us an indication, which of the following do you offer or include in it? And this is helpful for those of you that don't have a strategy, just to get a feel for what other organisations do have. Oh, they're interesting statistics too, from what I can see at the moment.
Right, I will close that and share those results. There we go.
Hence my comment, 71% for the 3, EAP, mental health, first aiders and flexible working. Yeah, I think they're the most obvious ones, I guess. EAPs can be relatively low cost, can't they, Sue, from what I understand in terms of, I don't know if you know roughly.
Yes, and I think a small amount, it's pence per employee usually, to provide what can be quite an extensive support service for very little outlay. And sometimes if you're offering things like health cash plan, it often comes with an EAP, or if you have a life assurance for your staff, often that also comes with an EAP service. So do check that you're not already providing one that you're not aware of and you've not promoted before you go down the route of looking at what's out there. But there are lots of options, and some of the perks, if you're offering like a range of perks and discounts, sometimes those include EAP as well. So there's quite a lot out there.
Yeah, and they're confidential, aren't they? So absolutely. As the employer, you won't know. You know what's
using them.
The reasons. You just know numbers and usage, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. You just know if there's been a take up. And you know, that should be sufficient. The fact that even if one person took it up, it's obviously valued by somebody, and it could have been, you know, absolutely crucial.
And I think if you offer that as a benefit, that's also a good, you know, promotion tool, selling tool. You know, if you're struggling with recruitment, it's about getting your proposition across, isn't it, to candidates? So that how do you stand out above other organisations? And if you are telling people that you offer an EAP, you have a health and wellbeing policy, for example, flexible remote working, like people are indicating here, you know, and other organisations don't, then not only does it tell candidates that you take their health and wellbeing seriously, but you obviously got more to offer than any other organisation that perhaps doesn't. So there's, yeah, lots of benefits for focusing on it. So good, thank you. I'll continue, and this is all about having that health and wellbeing culture that does prioritise and supports your employees. And what does that look like? So I've got some ideas here. Some of them we've covered. They are just some ideas. There may be lots more that perhaps are relevant to either your business or to your industry even. Different industries have different wellbeing challenges. So I think the first thing to say is having a health and wellbeing policy, I think, is fundamental because it sends that really strong message, like I've mentioned a moment ago, to your workforce and any, you know, job applicants about what you offer, that you're a supportive employer and that you consider the wellbeing of your staff to be central to your business. But having that policy also promotes that positive mental and physical health and wellbeing. It can raise awareness of the importance in taking care of yourself physically and mentally. It can highlight common issues that are associated with poor mental health, for example, or poor physical health. So helping people to identify and then work out what perhaps they can do. It provides support to line managers in how to manage ill health, both mental and physical poor health. And it can also signpost not just managers but employees to reputable sources of information for help on health and wellbeing, because remember, as line managers or as HR professionals, there is a limit to what we can provide advice and support on because we're not medically trained. And so it's important to recognise that sometimes there isn't necessarily anything further that you can say or advise or guide on, but you need to then leave that for the professionals. And so if you can signpost your line managers and employees to reputable sources, that will help to complement what you can also offer. Wellbeing strategies are also important for obviously promoting and supporting the physical and mental and social well-being of employees. So it's about promoting your healthy behaviours, supporting mental health, and encouraging that work-life balance. Line management training, like I've touched on previously, is fundamental to managing people when it comes to the welfare of your staff. It does play, line managers that play a key role. The CIPD report that we mentioned at the start found that a lack in line management skills or lacking confidence with line managers was the most common challenge for employee well-being, and management style being one of the top causes of stress-related absence. So having line management training incorporated into your strategy and as part of your culture is going to be vital. The CIPD also found that 68% of businesses do provide line managers with tailored support and 59% with some training in handling absences as well. So don't forget as well, the from a protection of risk from tribunals, your line managers really need to be trained in absence management and other key people management skills as well, so that you know that when they're managing their employees, they're doing so in a legal, fair and ethical way. Employee communication forums are also key for health and wellbeing culture. Again, in the CIPD report, it found that the use of staff surveys, focus groups, these are really popular tools for identifying issues that contribute to sickness absence. And in it, it reported that 66% of employers are using both forums, so the surveys and focus groups, to be able to identify causes. So if you can build a culture that incorporates regular communication forums with your staff, it's giving you that, it sends a message of open lines of communication, increases the chances of people feeling they have the trust and be able to come to you to raise any concerns if they have them. And so they do have a really important role to play. Stress risk assessments are essential. They're powerful tools in terms of reducing sickness absence in particular. So it enables you to proactively identify potential stress factors within the workplace and therefore allowing them to be addressed early and before anything escalates and negatively impacts employee well-being. So stress factors in the workplace can be anything like the workload, work-life balance, communication issues. So having that risk assessment in place, looking and understanding what your workplace context is like will help you to put the right tools in place. Employee assistance programs we've spoken about. It's about assisting in the resolution of employee concerns. If they've got any health concerns, mental or physical, they've got that line of communication to be able to seek guidance. It's about providing that free confidential counselling advice. And it differs to perhaps other forms of counselling services that we'll just touch on in a moment, because EAP is really aimed at the short-term health issues. Typically you might get a number of counselling services attached to the free telephone support, so they might have access to 6 in-person counselling sessions, but the idea is that it's for short-term health matters. Anything that's more, I don't know, if somebody's got a more of a long-standing health matter, mental health for example, and they're already under the care of some psychiatrists or what have you, EAP is not necessarily the tool for that because it's short term, but there may be some other sources of counselling support for that scenario. Mental health first aiders, we've touched on. We saw in the poll recently 71% of you do use them, and they do have a significant role to play in employee well-being, but as well as reducing sickness absence. They're fully trained in terms of understanding mental health, but they're not qualified in terms of from a medical perspective. But they'll have sufficient training and knowledge to be able to provide that initial support to somebody that might be struggling or in a situation where they need that help, and can direct them to more professional help. So it's about giving employees the access to having that early intervention and support. Then you have wellbeing champions. These are similar, but it's more of a rounded, more broader role that they would play. So it's, again, they're not trained necessarily on mental ill health, but they're seen as somebody in the organisation that's a promoter of employee wellbeing in the workplace. So again, they can play a key role in reducing sickness absence, because what they would do is, in their role, they would ensure that they're raising awareness across the workplace, or if they've got within their department, promoting healthy behaviours, healthy work practices, reminding their colleagues of policies that were in place, and helping the business to monitor and collect feedback. So there's, again, good reasons for having wellbeing champions, and something like that, again, is cost effective because there's not much of an outlay to introduce that. You might want to have some external training to help them in that, but essentially it's part of their employment that they take up those extra responsibilities. Access to counselling services, like I've touched on, perhaps counselling services that more can target longer term needs as opposed to the short term needs, which is what EAPs are typically there for supporting. And you'll be aware as business owners and HR practitioners that there are legal obligations to make reasonable adjustments when somebody's health is likely to be a disability under the Equality Act of 2010. And so a failure to make reasonable adjustments can lead to discrimination claims on the grounds of disability. But I think the important thing to say is, even if somebody's health issue isn't considered a disability for the purpose of the Equality Act, like I said right at the outset of this session, it's it's not just about maintaining legal compliance, but actually it's about the right thing to do, how you want to treat your employees and support them. So it goes more than above the legal compliance. It's about doing something, putting in place adjustments because it's the right thing to do. And promoting flexible working. It has been proven to work for both employer and employee. We've known that obviously in light of the pandemic and the need to instantly work from home and because of the lockdowns. So we do know that it's worked. And I think there's been a major shift in culture and mindset with employers in how it's seen. Obviously not all job roles can support flexible work, remote working, for example, but it's not just about remote, but also flexible working options. So if you can flex your employees' working arrangements, whether they do so on a short-term basis to help support them, or even just longer term, that will all help with ensuring your employees' health and well-being is prioritised. Before we come on to questions, I thought we would just talk specifically about the right to disconnect. I've mentioned it a few times, and actually I think perhaps we're going to hear about it more and more in the news, especially as I think one of the manifestos that is being launched as part of the general election is likely to touch on it. So what I thought I would do is just first of all just clarify what it is, and then we'll look at a particular situation where it is operated. So the right to disconnect is about giving individuals the right to switch off from work outside of their normal hours and without being disturbed. It's gained momentum in recent years. As I said, there's particular certain political parties that want to focus on it, but also we're seeing more and more countries adopting the practice. So it's about whether the UK is going to follow suit of its neighbouring countries, because we know Belgium, France, Portugal and the Republic of Ireland all operate a right to disconnect, and Spain as well. So what we're going to do in the next slide is look at how the Republic of Ireland have adopted this working practice. So they've got the Workplace Relations Commission that implemented what's called the Code of Practice for employers and employees on the right to disconnect. Now, it is a code of practice only, so it's guidance rather than a legal requirement, but nevertheless, it's certainly an indication of their commitment to ensuring employees have a focus on their health and well-being. So the code of practice is guidance and provides that best practice to employers. The guidance is to help create a workplace culture where employees feel that they can disconnect from work and work-related devices. And the ideas that it puts forward and recommends in the code includes things like establishing clear policies. So it's about defining the right to disconnect within the workplace policies, detailing when employees are expected to be available, but when they're not. It's about communication of the expectations so that employees understand the policies regarding working hours and availability. Really crucially, it's about respecting personal time. So the code talks about how it's encouraging that managers and employees to respect personal time and avoid contacting colleagues outside of work hours unless it's absolutely necessary. And I think the example in the code is around, you know, if you've got somebody that's on call, well, clearly you need to then get in contact and they can't completely disconnect if they're on call. But essentially it's about building that culture of respect of personal time. It recommends regular breaks, so promoting regular breaks during working hours to prevent burnout. It also has recommendations in the terms of how technology is used. So it's about limiting the use of communication tools outside designated work hours. I know there's perhaps, you know, you might see emails that are being sent out in the evening, late in the evenings. The recipient obviously not online and not working, but when they come in, they've had them come through overnight. and it's the code of practices trying to discourage that, and it's about limiting the use of communication tools purely to the designated work hours. So I think that particularly is quite a cultural shift and change, especially in the 24/7 world that we've talked about earlier. The code also talks about workload management, and the recommendations include things like ensuring the workloads are manageable within the contracted hours in order to prevent the need for overtime. And it recommends the use of flexible working arrangements to support flexible working arrangements that don't extend beyond agreed hours. Importantly, it puts forward the need for monitoring the compliance. So it's about regularly reviewing and monitoring the compliance with the disconnect policies and having feedback mechanisms where employees can report concerns about after hours work expectations without fear of reprisal. So as I said, I think it's going to build and get more momentum. There are many countries that adopt this right to disconnect, although, albeit in this case that I've talked about, it is the code and guidance only and best practice. There's no statutory legal entitlement. Whether that changes in the coming years, who knows? But it's certainly an area that employers are becoming more conscious about because of the need to support employee well-being. So I think we've got a couple of final polls before we move on to questions. The first one being around, does your business operate the right to disconnect? I mean, whilst we don't have any codes of practice in the UK or legislation, doesn't mean to say that you can't adopt those working practices and commitments. And it will be interesting to see actually how many of you do operate that.
I guess the more global organisations will be potentially
definitely
cover this, and those who've got offices or sites in the Republic of Ireland as well. Okay, I'll close that.
Right, so more than I thought, 33% of you have a disconnect policy of some sort then. That's good. Really interesting. If you've got any comments you want to share in the comments, do let us know. Let's see how you feel it's working, but that's interesting. And 67% of you don't. And I guess that's not a surprise really, because as I said, there's no code of practice as it stands, and there's no legislation. Whether there'll be in the future, who knows? But it's certainly, I think, going to get some momentum in the next few years.
And I think we've got one more, haven't we?
One more poll.
Yeah.
So would you see the practice beneficial to your business, and therefore would you consider introducing it? It's quite a cultural shift.
It is. And obviously it needs quite a lot of management training as well, doesn't it, to implement it successfully? Because you have to have everybody on board with it from the top down.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see kind of the business impact of doing so. You know, what are the effects of doing so? Have organisations seen an increase in staff retention, reduced absence levels, higher employee engagement? Might be something to research.
That looks like the majority, absolutely.
Yeah.
Considering it now. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is quite a shift, because I think that's possibly what the political parties are picking up on. It's something that's actively out there being considered, and therefore they want to make it more formal.
Yeah. And as I said, there are countries like Belgium, France, Portugal, Spain. So if you are thinking, perhaps it'd be interesting to see what they do
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
Thank you. And then what were we going to say? So I think the final thought is around really if we're going to just slightly do a different approach to a poll. So if you want to just drop in the comments or in the questions to let us know of anything else that your business does that promotes employee wellbeing. See if we can share some of those ideas with everyone, particularly those that don't have a strategy and are thinking, where do I start? Be quite helpful to see what other initiatives other organisations do. So take a few moments if you want to and are able to, and we'll see if we can read some out. And we could do that while we're looking through the questions as well, can't we? See if we've got questions that have come in.
Yeah, none at the moment. So
Okay.
either questions, or we can roll the two in, and any feedback or any comments or thoughts or things that you've done that you feel have been particularly successful, that you wish to share. We won't read your name out. We'll keep it all anonymous. But if there's any comments or thoughts that you would like to share, or any questions for us, then please just submit them.
Oh, we've got one comment from they're just about to introduce a health cash plan to all their staff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good. Yeah, it's something that we have ourselves and found to be really beneficial, especially as that often comes with a GP service linked to it, which particularly recently, when it's been challenging to find appointments, you can get telephone appointments on the same day, and face-to-face appointments organised, which can be really useful, but also covers things like the general stuff like opticians and dentists and things like that. So it's very helpful, particularly in the current climate. And just also, they usually come with an EAP. So again, it's something you can build into a staff intranet or a staff, if you've got a staff online shared resource, that make something of it and say, these are the guides that are available to you. These are the information points. This is how you easily access the service. You can usually download an app and have it on your phone, so it's always available to you at any time of day or night, because this is not just during work hours. This is at any time. So
and on that, I've personally used it in terms of the one we have. You can get money back from any prescription costs. So there's a limit as to how much in a year you can claim back through prescription costs. I want to say the limit's £60.
It is something like that. Yeah.
It's something like that. And so you can claim money back towards your prescriptions, and also some include the ability to get corporate discount with gyms, local gyms. So there's lots and lots of benefits that come with those health cash plans.
In fact, somebody else has commented they adopted an insurance policy that covers online GP, access to Headspace, money off gym memberships, etc. So these are all, if you do a survey of your staff as to what they would perceive to be a benefit to them, what are their priorities, what do they want from the organisation, you will probably find that healthcare is right at the top of the list. Over and over again, it's some kind of support with healthcare, because it's a rising issue and it's a costly issue. So it's definitely worth looking at. So I have had a question. So to what extent do we think changing societal and financial pressures, which is the demands on family time and dependence, are impacting employee wellbeing versus the workplace being the source of the stress and anxiety leading to employee absence and stats you showed at the start of the webinar? Absolutely. I think I don't know what the split would be, but I think it's as equally the pressures personally as the pressures from a work perspective. For some people, it will be both. For some people, it'll be one or the other. But yeah.
Do you know what? There's a phrase, and I can't remember it, but basically we're at a point in a society where people of working age have caring responsibilities, both young and of the elderly.
Yeah.
And because obviously that aging population, people living longer, people's personal pressures are increasing because there's more support that they need to give to family members all around. So I do think there's an element of the society is changing, and there's 24/7 and demands on everybody. It's interesting to know that split.
Yeah, but I think it will be quite individual as well. I think there'll be a complete mix. There'll be people who have pressures all round, at home personally as well as at work. Some use work as the release from the home pressures. And it's getting that balance. We've talked for a long time, for many years, about work and life balance. And if both of those are in balance, but they're also both highly stressful or highly pressured, then that's something that, it's being able to take that time out for yourself to be able to cope with them. And both will be impacted, but hopefully beneficially. It's just having resources available to you, and having the support from your employer that whatever the issues that are causing it, that there is somebody you can talk to confidentially and get help through to help you cope. There are many coping mechanisms and strategies, and for everybody they'll be different. So it's just being flexible, I think, and it's recognizing that if you support an employee through a difficult time, then they will reward you. Work-wise, you just sometimes need to give them some space.
Yeah. Things like career break policies, or time out, where people need a certain period of time just out to sort whatever they have that's going on outside. But once they've had that time out, they'll be back and ready. It's working out what's right for the person, obviously balancing with business needs, of course.
I think, and I know some managers are looking at introducing things like walking meetings. So they will hold meetings either face to face physically by going for a walk with the person and not taking any notes, using it as an opportunity to share ideas and thoughts in a nice environment, or going out to the office and having a coffee somewhere and having that as your meeting space can sometimes just be enough to get you out of the routine and to allow your mind time to think. And some are doing it that they'll walk around while attending meetings, so they're not just sat at their desk staring at the screen. They're actually walking around, talking as well. So there are some sort of sound a little bit different, but quite easy to implement, I would imagine, depending on where you're based.
Low cost or zero cost.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can sometimes help, especially if you're doing one-to-ones with staff. Don't have a one-to-one sitting on a Teams call for an hour or two. Have a one-to-one where you go for a walk. And you can come back and document it if you need to, but actually that will probably be more beneficial than 2 hours sitting on a Teams call making notes.
And just on that, because we have our own employee engagement group, don't we, Sue, where we're discussing ideas, and it's all the social side of it as well. So like we've got a summer event coming up, and that all is a positive steps for positive employee wellbeing. But we've got bring your dog to work day coming up in June, and I know that I sort of had thought, well, what if we all, those that have got dogs, or even if you haven't got dogs, meet up over the lunchtime with your dogs and do a lunchtime dog walk?
Yeah. In fact, somebody's just messaged us saying they have an office dog which different members of staff walk during the day to get away from their desk. amazing.
I mean,
You know, if
animals,
everybody else
yeah,
does that.
dogs in particular are so good
Stress
for
relief, aren't
mental
they?
health and
Yes.
stress. Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
yeah. So lots of ideas.
So yeah. So I think having an office dog is a great idea.
I'd love an office dog. I have a home office dog that does drive me crazy sometimes.
Yes, mine just snores in
um,
his bed. So.
but yeah, little things like that that can just make life more interesting at work.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay.
okay,
That's it, I think.
lovely, thank you. All good comments as well, so thank you for that. So just to bring it to a close, just a few slides as normal that we like to just share with you. We do offer HR knowledge base, so I haven't mentioned it necessarily actually in today's webinar, but if you're in need of template documents, if you're a standalone HR practitioner or small business and you just we offer the online HR portal where you can access all our template documents, policies that you need for the entire employment life cycle. So do get in touch, let us know if you're interested in finding more about that. We offer training, of course, all on the key aspects of managing your people. So you'll notice we offer ILM level 3 and 5 as well, and our training courses count towards CPD points. And as you can see, it covers all different aspects of managing people. We've recently launched our new and updated webinar, or new webinar schedule, sorry. So taking us right through to December. Next month is all about protecting your employees from harassment, because we've got some legal changes happening at the end of October. Then in August, we're going to be discussing changes in employment law that affect the management of business transfers. Again, this links in with some changes in employment legislation around TUPE. And then in September, we're going to be talking about what the employment landscape will look like post the general election. So that's September, and obviously we'll know by that point as to who will be in government and what their plans are when it comes to employment law. And then as we go into the autumn, I can't believe I'm talking about the end of the year, but in October it's about understanding risk when managing people. So we're looking at all the aspects that come with that, and tribunals and ways in which we can mitigate that. November is a timely one in that it's about looking at how you manage work-related functions and events, given that it's in the lead up to the party season. And then in December, our popular annual webinar where we're looking at the year ahead for 2025. And I suspect there'll be we've got some case rulings that perhaps will be coming through, and new legislation or existing legislation perhaps being amended. So do register for those free events. They happen on the second Thursday of every month. So there's the QR code, or you can visit our website. Just also to let you know that we recently published our own white paper. So we've created that through our own experiences of the HR profession and business, as well as research, and it's now available. So you can access it for free by the QR code that's showing on the screen. And it's really about strategic HR thinking and how you can align the people and business strategy. And it provides a wealth of information with a key focus on current, but as well as developing trends in the area of human resource management. So as I said, you can download it for free, the QR code here, or visit our website directly. And then finally, as always, we do like to ask you if you'd like us to follow up with you afterwards about our services, whether it's our HR services, training, payroll, our knowledge base, health and safety. So do please let us know by taking part in the poll. Okay, yep, so training, HR, health and safety, knowledge-based payroll services. Okay. And then I'll just finish with just saying thank you again for everybody. I know people are very busy, so it's always great to have you join us, or if you're listening to us back on demand. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you next month's webinar. And if you do have any queries or want to get in touch with us, there's our details there. But thank you for joining us, and thank you, Sue, for co-supporting in the webinar. Thank you.